Hi, I'm Kei Koizumi, formerly at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where I worked on federal funding for science. I'm here today on behalf of All of Us and March for Science to talk to you about why it's important that the federal government keep investing in scientific research and what we can do going forward from the March for Science to keep American science funding strong. So today I'm going to talk to you about the $70 billion or so that the federal government invests in scientific research each year. Now that is a very large investment, the largest in the world, and it comes from 20 different federal agencies that all have some role to play in supporting cutting-edge scientific research. They are agencies like the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, NASA, Department of Agriculture, etc. Now, all of these agencies are funded in an annual budget and appropriations process in the federal government. So the federal government, Congress, and the President have to make decisions each year about what to support in federal science. Now, where we are right now is that on April 28th, this Friday, the federal government still has to make decisions about what to spend for this year. Now, because of the march happening last week, it's probably too soon to be able to make much of a difference in what Congress and the President are going to do about this year's funding. But we do have opportunities to influence what Congress and the President will decide for next year. Now, what's going to happen in a couple of weeks is that President Trump will release what we call a 2018 detailed budget. And that is the President's proposal for what the federal government is going to spend in next year, 2018. And in that budget, he's going to provide details program by program for what the federal government is going to spend its money on. Now, we already have a preview of what the Trump administration's priorities are because in March, President Trump released what we call a skinny budget or a budget outline. And in it, there was a lot of bad news for federal science agencies. For example, there were some very steep cuts proposed for NIH's biomedical research, for Department of Energy, for the Environmental Protection Agency, for the U.S. Geological Survey, and so many of these other science agencies. Now, in the May detailed budget, we're also going to find out what the proposals are for some of the other science agencies that weren't addressed in the detailed budget. So what we know so far is that the administration has proposed some devastating cuts to science programs throughout the federal government. And it's likely that when the detailed budget comes out in May, there will be more cuts proposed. And those cuts could really damage the U.S. science and engineering enterprise that is the leader in the world so far. But we have an opportunity to make a difference. What's coming up is that in October, the federal government's fiscal year 2018 begins. Now, the President can propose a federal budget, but it's Congress that makes the decisions as to what to spend on individual programs. So the budget is going to Congress, and that's where we have an opportunity to make a difference because we are citizens and we can influence what Congress decides. Over the next few months between May and October, we have the opportunity to tell our stories as to why science is important to us, why science is important to our communities and to our nation. Now, I think that discussion is going to be especially important for a group of members of Congress that we call appropriators. The appropriators are especially important because they have a role to play in determining individual funding levels for federal programs. So if you're a member of Congress as an appropriator, you have a chance to tell your story about why spending on a government program is important. If you don't know who your member of Congress is, then please go to house.gov or senate.gov, type in your zip code or your state, and they will tell you who your member of Congress is, and they will tell you which committees they sit on. If your member is an appropriator, then it's especially important that you let them know why science funding is important to you. But even if your member is not an appropriator, All members of Congress vote on the bills that come out of appropriations committees that provide funding for science agencies. So you should also contact your member of Congress and let them know why federal funding for science is important, because it's your voice being heard in Congress that can make a difference and make sure that the federal government keeps investing in scientific research and keeps the U.S. science and engineering enterprise the #1 world leader that it is today. And we have an opportunity to make sure that these cuts turn into strong funding for science in the weeks to come. Thank you.